Do you ever give almost 3 decades of your life to a company, thinking you'd retire with a handshake and a gold watch? Yeah, me too. But instead, I got a cardboard box, a forced smile from HR, and a security guard escorting me out the damn door. 3 days. That's all I needed. 3 frickin' days, and my pension 29 years worth would have been mine, fully vested, locked in. But nope, my boss Dale had other plans. Plans that didn't include honoring promises or treating people with dignity. I didn't see it coming either. Not really. Looking back now, sure, there were red flags. The budget cuts, meetings, the sudden silence from upper management. And Dale, he'd started avoiding eye contact, pretending to be busy any time I walked by. Still, I thought I was safe. I was the guy who trained half the damn department. I'd given my blood, sweat, and 2 herniated discs to that company, but I was wrong. Morning they called me into HR. I knew. My gut twisted before I even sat down. They said some bull about restructuring and downsizing. I asked if they realized I was 3 days from vesting. Dale just shrugged. It's nothing personal. Market's business. Business. Right, I left without making a scene. Took my box, my pride barely intact. But what Dale didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. See, I've got a daughter in cybersecurity. And I've got a good memory. Especially when it comes to shady stuff Dale's done over the years. Like that consulting invoice from his cousin's company. Or the warehouse equipment that never showed up, so I made a phone call. And that phone call, it started something that would make Dale wish he'd just let me retire in peace. Asterisk, I started at Axiom Logistics when I was 26. Back then, I had more hair, fewer wrinkles, and no clue how corporate snakes wore smiles so well. The job wasn't glamorous, but it was solid. I moved up slow but steady: forklift operator, warehouse supervisor, then logistics coordinator. Eventually, I became the senior operations lead. 29 years. I was loyal, reliable, boring, maybe, but dependable as hell. And Dale, he showed up about 6 years ago. Fresh from some tech startup, acting like he was God's gift to the supply chain. He had that Silicon Valley swagger, too much hair gel, always talking in buzzwords like synergy and workflow optimization. He didn't know crap about how we actually moved product, but he knew how to climb. Sucked up to the VP, threw his team under the bus when things went sideways, and somehow always landed on his feet. Still, I played along because I had one goal: hit 30 years, retire with my full pension, and buy that fishing cabin in Michigan like I'd always dreamed. Then came the meetings, budget review, downsizing talks, efficiency audits, the kinds of words that make long-timers like me nervous, but I still didn't think they'd touch me. I was the backbone of our department, for God's sake. Then, one Monday morning, I got the email, subject, mandatory HR meeting 9 a.m. please report to conference room B. I felt it in my gut, cold, hard dread. I walked in and saw Dale already there, not even pretending to be uncomfortable. HR manager Susan was sitting stiffly next to him, her mouth set in that tight corporate frown. Dale cleared his throat. Mark, we're restructuring. Unfortunately, your position is being eliminated, effective immediately. I blinked. You do realize my pension vests in 3 days? Susan jumped in like she was reading off a cue card. We understand this is difficult, but per company policy, your tenure ends today. You'll receive a severance package equivalent to 6 weeks' pay. I tuned her out. All I could think about was those long nights, weekends sacrificed, birthdays missed, and surgeries postponed. For what? For this? I didn't yell. I didn't throw the chair like I wanted to. I just stood, nodded, and walked out. Security followed me to my locker. I boxed up my coffee mug, some old safety awards, and a framed photo of me and my daughter at Bring Your Kid to Work Day from 2007. When I got home, I didn't speak. I just stared at the walls. My daughter, Riley, was visiting for the weekend. She's 28, smart as hell, works for a government contractor doing cybersecurity. She saw my face and didn't need to ask what happened. They fired me, I said, 3 days before vesting. She didn't say anything at first. Then she whispered, that's theft. That night, we stayed up late. I told her about Dale, about the invoices, the shady contractors, how he once approved a $130,000 consulting fee for his cousins. LLC, one that didn't even have a website. She looked at me carefully and said, Dad, did you keep any of this? I nodded. It's all in my personal drive. I started saving stuff 5 years ago, just in case. She smiled. Good, let me take a look. That was the moment everything shifted. I didn't know exactly what she had in mind, but I knew Riley, and if she said she was going to take a look, it meant something big was coming. The next day she asked me to drive to her apartment and bring the external drive I'd used as backup. I'm not saying we go nuclear, she said, but ... we might gently detonate a few truths. Asterisk, Riley wasn't playing ... within 24 hours. She'd already mirrored my old files onto her workstation. She had dual monitors, lines of code flying by, and this intense look in her eyes. That reminded me of her mum during tax season. This is worse than I thought, she muttered. What do you mean? She pointed at one folder. Consultants _2018 _2023 Dad. This vendor, Delta Synergy Logistics, they've billed your company nearly $4.7 million over 5 years, but there's no online presence, no tax records, nothing, just a P.O. box in Nevada. I raised an eyebrow. That's Dale's cousin's operation. He used to brag about it during lunch. Riley kept digging. And look at this. These pieces of equipment orders have identical timestamps and signatures, but they're 6 months apart. That's lazy fraud, literally copy-paste. I stared at the screen, equal parts horrified and vindicated. Riley grinned. If we package this right and send it to the right place, someone's going down hard. I hesitated. You think they'll take me seriously? A fired employee with a grudge. She nodded. That's why we're not going to send it. I know someone inside the office of the Inspector General. She owes me a favor. My heart pounded. Wait, you're saying we go federal with this? Yup. Over the next few days, Riley prepped everything. We had screenshots, PDF files, metadata, email headers. She even tracked internal chat logs from Dale's old Slack messages, where he casually bragged about massaging the budget. The final straw, an email chain where Dale discussed cleaning house by firing tenured employees before their pensions vested. He literally used the phrase, trim the fat before the payout. That wasn't just unethical, that was illegal. We sent the entire file package to her contact, a woman named Alicia, working out of DC. She confirmed receipt within 2 hours. This is substantial. I'm flagging it for immediate review. I tried not to get my hopes up. Corporate fraud cases move slow, but at least now I wasn't screaming into a void. While we waited, I started writing down everything I remembered. Dates, conversations, suspicious meetings. Riley called it witness testimony documentation. She was training me like I was prepping for court then. 3 weeks after sending the report happened, Dale called me. I was out in the garage reorganizing my tools when my phone rang. His name lit up on the screen like a curse. I answered, slow. Hello, Mark, Dale said, his voice brittle. Hey, you just wanted to check in. No hard feelings about what happened, right? I nearly laughed. You checking in, after everything? There was a pause. Then he said, look, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'm actually working on a new project and might have a position opening. I thought of you. I didn't say a word. He went on. Just think about it, okay? Maybe we can. I hung up. Riley stared at me from the doorway. That was him, wasn't it? Yep, she smirked. He's panicking. I bet the auditors called him. 2 days later I got confirmation. Alicia emailed Riley and said, investigation opened, initial findings verified, additional subpoenas likely. Please do not contact the target again. My stomach turned, not with fear, with satisfaction. For 29 years, I kept my head down, played by the rules, trusted the system, and the system nearly robbed me blind, but not anymore. Now it was Dale's turn to sweat. The email from Alicia confirmed it. The investigation was official and you could feel it, even from outside the company. Riley had set up a couple of Google alerts using internal project names from Dale's old emails. Within a week, stories began bubbling under the surface. A couple of logistics blogs picked up rumors of an internal audit at Axiom Logistics, and some LinkedIn posts mentioned unexpected resignations in upper management. I knew what that meant. They were circling the wagons. A former co-worker of mine, Jared from compliance, texted me out of nowhere. Hey man, weird question. Did you ever talk to anyone outside the company about Dale? Things are ... weird here. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't want to, but because Alicia had advised against it. Anything I said could contaminate the case. Instead, I kept quiet. Watched. Then, like a domino line starting to fall, things unraveled fast. 2 weeks in, Dale stopped showing up to work. 3 weeks in, his LinkedIn profile went dark. 4 weeks in, the company sent out a vague all-staff email about leadership changes and a renewed focus on integrity. Yeah, right. Then one night, Riley burst into the living room holding her laptop. You're gonna want to see this, she said, grinning ear to ear. She showed me an SEC filing, public record notifying shareholders of a federal investigation into fraudulent misappropriation of funds by a former executive. The name wasn't listed, but we both knew. Oh, and look at this, Riley added, clicking through to a Reddit thread under r/logisticsleaks. Someone had anonymously posted our VP was fired. Whole department under review. Rumor is he skimmed off contracts and ghost vendors. Calm as a bitch. I leaned back, stunned. For the first time in over a month, I let myself smile. Not the tired kind. The real kind, the kind you earn. Riley raised her glass. 2 pensions. And patience. I clinked my water bottle with hers, but that wasn't the end. The real twist came when I got a letter from Axiom. I nearly tossed it, thought it was more severance paperwork. But something told me to open it. Inside was a formal notice from their legal department. Upon further internal review, it has come to our attention that your termination may have been procedurally inappropriate and in violation of federal employment guidelines. Enclosed is a revised retirement agreement. ... double quotes. Wait, what? I read it again. They were reinstating my pension retroactively, full benefits, full payout. And get this, they were also offering me a consulting retainer, $75,000 to assist in the transition period and support compliance training initiatives. Translation: please don't sue us. I showed it to Riley. She burst out laughing. Oh my God, she said, they're trying to buy your silence. I didn't care. Let them. I wasn't in this for revenge anymore. Not really. I was in it for justice. For the 29 years I'd been invisible, overlooked, disposable. Now I was the damn storm. I signed the agreement after my lawyer reviewed every word and deposited the check. Then I bought the cabin in Michigan, the one I'd dreamed about since I was 35. And the day I left for good, I packed up my old work boots, my faded ID badge, and a single sticky note I'd written the day Dale fired me. 3 days. I crossed it out and wrote, one phone call. Asterisk. The cabin was quiet, peaceful in a way that made me realize how loud my old life had been. Each morning I'd wake up to the sound of birds, not emails. I'd make coffee on the deck and look out over the still water, sometimes wondering if it had all really happened. The firing, the file dump, Dale's fall, the letter from the company. Sometimes justice comes slow, other times it shows up like a freight train with no brakes. For the first few weeks, I kept expecting some other shoe to drop, some email, some letter, something telling me they'd changed their minds, that it was all a mistake, but it never came. Instead, what came were articles, news stories, whispers online turning into headlines. Former Axiom VP under federal investigation for wire fraud, whistleblower evidence triggers. DOJ probe corporate scandal, pension theft tied to widespread executive scheme. Dale's face clean-shaven, smug as ever, was plastered next to each headline. At first it felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life implode. But it wasn't. It was mine, my life, my story. My pain finally being validated. What no one knew except Riley was just how close Dale had come to getting away with it. Had he waited just 3 more days, I would have been locked in. But no, he got greedy. Or arrogant. Probably both, and that was his mistake. I remember a voicemail he left about a month after the investigation went public. I still have it saved. Mark, hey, it's Dale. Listen, I know there's been some noise in the press. I just wanted to say if there's anything you can do to ease things up. Maybe clarify a few things. You know, I always respected you. Call me please. I never called back. Not because I hated him. I didn't. I just wanted him to feel what I had felt. Ignored, unimportant, powerless. It was poetic, really. Meanwhile, Riley's life was changing too. After the investigation, her friend at the Inspector General's office connected her with a cybersecurity firm that specialized in corporate fraud forensics. Within a month, she was leading a small team. They were already building a whistleblower support platform, part database, part secure pipeline for evidence submissions. I named one of the intake tools after you, she told me once. Called it Operation 3 Days. I nearly cried. Back in Michigan, I was getting used to the slower pace. People in town started calling me retired guy from that company's scandal. I never corrected them. I wasn't interested in being some kind of hero. But one day I was at the local hardware store picking up lumber for a deck project, and the cashier, young guy, maybe early 20s, said something that stuck with me. You, Mark, right, the guy who blew the whistle. My uncle works at Axiom's Chicago branch. Said they rehired all the guys they pushed out early, gave them back pay even. Said someone made that happen. Was that you? I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. He gave me a thumbs up. You did good, man. And for the first time in my entire career I felt seen. Months passed. Winter came. Snow fell heavy across the trees. I spent the holidays with Riley. We watched old movies, baked cookies from her mom's recipe, and for once didn't talk about corruption, files, or Dale. But on New Year's Eve, she surprised me. She pulled out her laptop, typed something, and handed it over. It was a draft email addressed to Axiom Board of Directors. I am the daughter of Mark C., former senior ops lead. I am also a cybersecurity expert and part of the investigative process that helped expose your internal fraud. I've compiled a set of ethical recommendations for whistleblower protection, pension oversight, and executive contract review. You may choose to ignore this, or you can read it as an opportunity. Consider this my application to consult on your recovery program. I don't need a job. I'm offering a shield. You'll want someone like me next time. I was stunned you're going back in. I asked. She smiled. Not really. Just giving them a chance to evolve. That's what you taught me. Revenge is hollow unless it leads to something better. Damn, she was right. As spring rolled in, I started receiving letters from some of my old co-workers. One of them, Linda, wrote, Mark, you don't know what you did for us. I got my pension back. I thought I'd never see a dime. I cried when I opened that envelope. I cried harder when I realized you did this for all of us. Another letter was from a guy I barely knew. Tony worked in logistics in Texas. I used to think loyalty didn't matter. You reminded me it does. Thank you. That's when I realized this wasn't just my story. It had become something bigger. Then one morning, a black SUV pulled up my gravel driveway. 2 men in dark suits stepped out. Riley froze. It's okay, I said, already knowing. They were with the DOJ Office of Special Investigations. One of them handed me an envelope and said, Mr. C., we wanted to deliver this personally. We appreciate your contribution. Inside was a certificate, official, gold seal and all. In recognition of your critical role in uncovering systemic fraud within Axiom Logistics, your actions have led to reform, recovery, and restitution for over 100 affected employees. It wasn't a medal, it wasn't a check, but it was everything. That night, I sat on the deck, whiskey in hand, feet kicked up on the railing. The lake was still, the stars were out. I looked at my phone. Dale's name was still in my contacts. I opened it, deleted it, and with that, the last weight lifted off my shoulders. They thought they could erase me, but I became the headline, the cautionary tale, the reason they think twice before screwing the next guy over. Some people chase revenge like a storm. Me, I just made a phone call and watched the storm.
I'm a lawyer. I don't scream. I don't throw things. I don't burn houses down. I take notes. I build cases. I win. So, when I found out my husband of 10 years had been sleeping with my younger sister behind my back, I didn't cry. I didn't call them. I didn't even tell them I knew. Not yet. I just smiled and said I had a late meeting at the firm. You see, betrayal doesn't break me, it sharpens me. Because what neither of them realized is that while they were busy playing games behind my back, I was already 5 steps ahead. They stole my heart, my trust, my home life, so I decided to take everything they cared about. Not with fire, not with fists, with paperwork, silence, and perfect timing. Asterisk, there are 2 kinds of betrayal in life. The kind that blindsides you like a car crash, loud, violent, and immediate. And the kind that creeps in quietly, like a leak in your ceiling, until everything collapses. Mine was the second kind. I met Jason during my 2nd year of law school. He was a CPA, charming in that understated, cardigan-wearing way. He wasn't flashy, but he was solid, dependable. Or so I thought. We got married the year I made junior partner. I thought we were building something. A life, a legacy. The kind of relationship people envied for its calm, its structure, its mutual respect. And then there was my sister, Chloe. She was always the fun one. Younger by 6 years, spontaneous, bubbly, chaotic. She bounced between careers like it was a hobby florist 1 year, event planner the next, then briefly an online manifestation coach. I loved her, of course I did, but I always kept my distance. Because Chloe had a habit of turning other people's lives into a stage for her own drama. I just never thought she'd turn mine into a one-woman play. It started small, too small, to notice if I wasn't trained to read people for a living. Jason would come home late and mention how Chloe had dropped by to borrow a book. I'd find an empty wine glass in the sink when I knew I hadn't had any. She'd randomly text me things like, "Hope Jay's been eating. That man forgets to chew when he's busy." I brushed it off. Told myself I was paranoid. But then, one night Friday, 11:27 p.m., I walked out of my office to grab tea and saw Jason's phone on the kitchen island, lit up. Message preview from Chloe, "Still thinking about your hands last night." That's when the tea kettle started to scream. And that's when I knew. The betrayal didn't hit all at once. It settled into me slowly like venom. It rewrote every memory, every family dinner. Every time I asked Jason to pick up Chloe from the airport. Every time she hugged me a little too long in front of him, I wanted to scream, throw things, drive to her apartment and bang on the door. But I didn't, because I'm not like them. They act. I calculate. I spent the next 2 weeks acting perfectly normal. I packed Jason's lunch, texted Chloe heart emojis. I even invited them both to a brunch I couldn't attend, so they'd go alone just to confirm what I already knew. They did. I tracked her phone. Simple G. She didn't even have her location settings turned off. Amateur, when it confirmed she'd spent the night at our place while I was out of town for a deposition. I took screenshots, silent, precise. By now, most people would be crying into a pint of ice cream. Me. I was cataloging passwords, bank account activity, real estate documents, family trusts, business filings. I built a virtual war room on my private drive, every possible piece of leverage documented, organized, and timed, because Chloe may have stolen my husband. But I still owned the company that managed her trust fund. I still controlled the LLC that held her car lease, and Jason. His name was on the title of our marital home, but the down payment came from my inheritance. The prenup, which I drafted, had clauses even he didn't remember signing. They thought they were slick, they forgot who I am. Asterisk, there's something about betrayal that makes people sloppy. Once they think they've gotten away with it once, they think you're clueless, they start getting comfortable. Bold, lazy. Chloe started showing up more. She'd swing by my house unexpectedly to grab something she left, linger near Jason like they were in on some joke I wasn't part of. Jason started checking out emotionally. He'd nod through conversations, forget small things like my dry cleaning or our anniversary. I could see it in his eyes. Guilt, poorly disguised as detachment. They didn't realize I was collecting all of it. Every fake excuse, every accidental glance, every piece of evidence that could prove without a doubt that this wasn't just an affair, it was a conspiracy. I started with Chloe. Her finances were a beautiful disaster. She lived like she was rich, but most of her expenses were being quietly covered by family accounts she didn't fully understand. And guess who managed most of those structures? Me. Years ago, when our parents passed, they left a joint inheritance with a clause. I'd act as trustee until Chloe turned 40. She never paid attention to the details, just assumed the money would be there. She also didn't know I'd restructured parts of it under a shell LLC I controlled. Legally, of course. I'm a lawyer, remember? But here's the key. I could freeze the disbursements with just one form citing suspected misuse. And I had plenty of misuse to point to. Credit card transactions linked to hotels during dates I'd accidentally made her confirm with me over text. She didn't just cheat with my husband. She used our family money to help cover it up. Delicious. Jason was trickier. He wasn't dumb, overconfident. He thought that being married to a high-functioning lawyer made him immune to exposure. But what he didn't realize was that every shared asset we had, I built the paper trail. I filed the taxes. I negotiated the mortgage. He just signed where I told him to. The house, mine, the second car, technically in my firm's name. The joint savings account. Most of the deposits were from my bonuses. I waited until a Friday evening after he went to grab drinks with a client and quietly pulled $74,200 into a solo revocable trust with my name on it. I even left him $200 and a note in the banking app titled, "For coffee, don't spend it all in one place." Then came the emotional dismantling. I didn't want screaming matches or confrontations. I wanted reality to crush them from the inside out. I planted doubt. I mentioned casually, over dinner, that I was thinking about updating our will, just in case. I said, sipping wine. You never know who you can really trust. Jason blinked, paused, said nothing. A few days later, I told Chloe I was finally ready to forgive her for that thing she did in high school. I didn't say what. I just let her sweat and fill in the blanks. She texted me a paragraph later that night that started with, "I don't know what you mean, but if you're referring to exactly." I didn't reply. By this point, my spreadsheet was color-coded, time-stamped, and categorized. Financial sabotage. Trust fund freeze drafted. Prenup enforcement analysis complete. Psychological erosion. Very much in progress, but I needed something more. Something final. I remembered Chloe once telling me drunk at Thanksgiving, she'd been working on a new business. A boutique design brand she'd finally gotten investors for. Curious, I looked it up, and guess who one of the main angel investors was? Jason. He'd loaned her $35,000. There were emails, paper trails, even one message saying, "Let's keep this between us for now. Don't want your sister thinking I'm playing favorites." Well, I smiled, because the company's filing was incorrect. It had trademark issues, tax issues. She'd used a placeholder IN that was never validated, and now I had a direct link between them. Commingled finances, undeclared gifts, and illegal startup funding. I didn't even have to report them. I just had to threaten to. Everything was in place. All I had to do now was let them make the next move, because what's sweeter than revenge? Letting the people who wronged you walk straight into their own destruction thinking they're winning until the floor disappears beneath their feet, and when they fall, you're already holding the deed to the land they thought they stole. By the time I decided to make my move, Chloe and Jason were completely unaware of the storm heading their way. They thought their secret was safe, that they were untouchable. How wrong they were. Chloe was busy living her best life online, posting photos from brunches, boutique openings, and weekend getaways. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, her finances began to unravel, starting with the freezing of her trust fund. I had exercised my authority as trustee and immediately halted all disbursements. Her credit cards declined one after another. Monthly bills went unpaid. Phone calls from vendors and collection agencies flooded her inbox. Her panic was a quiet storm at first. A text message that read, "What is going on? I have bills to pay. You can't do this to me." I replied with cold professionalism, "I'm enforcing the terms of the trust, which allows suspension of funds upon evidence of misuse. Please review your spending." There was no apology, no excuses, just consequences. Jason's downfall was more subtle but just as devastating. When he tried to access joint accounts for what he thought was a simple weekend getaway, every transaction failed. The mortgage payment was suddenly past due. My name was on every contract and payment agreement, and I refused any unauthorized withdrawal. He began receiving calls from the mortgage company, tax authorities, and the bank's fraud department. His carefully cultivated image of a dependable CPA started cracking under pressure. He sent me vague, regretful messages and apologies, but I stayed silent. Then, I took legal action. I filed papers citing violations of fiduciary duty, breach of contract, and conflict of interest. I submitted detailed evidence, email chains, financial records, witness testimonies proving the loans he had secretly extended to Chloe and the mingling of funds. His law firm stepped in. Negotiations began. Notices were sent. Chloe's little business was audited, and investors fled as the truth came to light. I never raised my voice or staged any confrontations. I didn't need to. Real power lies in control. In silence, in the ability to dismantle your enemies without them seeing the hammer coming. I watched from a distance as Chloe's life crumbled. Eviction notices replaced Instagram posts. Phone calls from creditors replaced brunch invitations. She lost her apartment, the boutique collapsed, and her social circle vanished quietly. Jason's reputation in the CPA community was tarnished. His license was put under review. Former clients distanced themselves. The law firm that once touted his name abandoned him like a sinking ship. One day, Chloe showed up at my office, desperate and defeated. She said only 3 words. "I'm sorry." I nodded, satisfied. It was the apology I'd wanted, not for forgiveness, but for acknowledgement. The final blow came with the estate. The prenuptial agreement, which I had drafted with precision years ago, included a clause stating that any material breach of marriage by either party forfeited claims to shared assets. I invoked it. Had the deed to our marital home reassigned solely to me. Jason threatened legal battles, but after reviewing the mountain of evidence I submitted, even his lawyers advised against it. Months later, as I sat in my office, gazing at the framed photo of the 3 of us from happier days, I turned it face down. No tears, no smiles, just quiet triumph. Justice had been served. Asterisk when the final court ruling was in my favor. It felt strangely quiet, no triumphant cheers, no dramatic speeches. Just a deep, steady calm. I sat back in my leather chair, staring at the framed photo on my desk, the 3 of us, smiling on a warm summer day, before everything shattered. The photo was a frozen moment of what could have been. I turned it face down. Not out of spite, but because that version of my life no longer existed. The fallout from the legal battles hit. Chloe hard. With her trust fund frozen and no way to access family money. She had to scramble to keep her lifestyle afloat. Her boutique, which she'd dreamed about 4 years, collapsed under the weight of unpaid bills, lost investors, and dwindling customers. Her apartment lease was terminated when she fell behind on rent. The luxury car she drove, repossessed. Gone were the Instagram perfect photos and glamorous weekends. I stopped following her social media months ago. What remained was a quiet, broken woman who tried to rebuild from the rubble. Jason's downfall was a slow unraveling of his carefully constructed reputation. Local news outlets picked up the story of the CPA scandal, with the sensational headlines everyone loves. His professional license was suspended. Pending investigation, clients left him in droves. The prestigious firm that once lauded his work issued a terse statement, emphasizing their commitment to ethical standards, and distancing themselves from him. But here's what no one saw: how I rebuilt myself. The months after the dust settled weren't easy, but they were mine. I poured my energy into growing my law practice, taking on new cases, new clients, new challenges. I mentored young women who had faced discrimination, harassment, or betrayal in their careers, helping them find their own voices and strength. Together with Riley, my steadfast assistant, we launched the Justice for the Betrayed Scholarship Fund to support women pursuing law degrees, because sometimes the best revenge is empowering others. The best part: freedom. Freedom from lies. Freedom from betrayal. Freedom from the fear of being powerless. Sometimes, I'd catch myself thinking about Jason and Chloe, not with anger or hate, but with a strange sense of closure. One afternoon, I received a letter from Chloe. No apology. No excuses, just a single sheet of paper with 2 words written clearly: "You win." I folded it carefully, placing it in my desk drawer. Because winning isn't about making noise or rubbing salt in wounds, it's about taking back your power and never letting anyone steal it again. I often think back to the day I found out, the shock, the betrayal, the silence that followed. That moment could have broken me. But instead, it made me. If you take anything from my story, know this: revenge isn't a storm, it's a slow, steady burn. It's strategy, patience, and unwavering resolve. It's about knowing your worth and never letting anyone take it away. I didn't just get my life back, I built a better one. One where I'm the one in control. Where I write my own ending. And if you're reading this because someone has betrayed you, hold on, plan. Rise, because your story isn't over. It's just beginning.
Let me tell you something, nothing hits harder than being humiliated by your own sister. In front of your entire family, your friends, and worse, her fancy boss at her engagement party. She said I was a pathetic loser, that I couldn't keep a job, that I was still living in the past. And everyone laughed, right there. With a champagne glass in one hand and fake sympathy in the other, I stood there smiling, swallowing every insult like it was a spoonful of acid. What hurt most? It wasn't even the first time she did this. It was her thing playing perfect, making me look like the family failure. And I was tired. So tired. But what she didn't know, that night was the last time she'd mock me without consequences, because I had something she forgot. Something she thought didn't matter anymore. She thought I was just her weird little sister who couldn't get her life together. She didn't know I had her dirty little secret, and that her boss, the same one she was trying to impress with her flawless image, would be the one to rip that mask right off her face. Let's just say, by the end of that night, no one was laughing at me anymore. You ever get that feeling like you're watching your own life from the outside? That was me standing there in my thrift store dress, gripping a watered-down mimosa while my older sister Lindsay twirled around in her designer gown, surrounded by her family, her rich fiancé, and half the law firm she worked for. It was her engagement party. A backyard, casual event that somehow had a violinist, an ice sculpture, and a champagne tower. Me. I wasn't even supposed to be there. Lindsay had accidentally left me off the invite list again. Mom had guilt-tripped her into letting me come last minute. And trust me, I wish she hadn't. Everything was going fine until she decided to play her favorite game, publicly destroy my little sister for entertainment. So, Emily, Lindsay said, with a fake sweet smile and her arm around her fiancé, tell everyone what you're doing these days. Still figuring things out? Cue the laughter. Even her boss chuckled politely. I felt my stomach sink. Didn't you, try to start a podcast or something? How's that going? I paused it, I said, keeping my smile frozen, then focusing on other things. Oh, she said, tilting her head like I was a stray dog. Still living in your old room, right? Must be cozy. My cheeks burned. I saw my mom shoot her a look, but no one said anything. No one ever did. She kept going. She made a joke about my ex, about my lack of direction, about how some people just don't have the drive. Then came the final blow. Well, not everyone can be successful, I guess. That was when something inside me snapped. I forced a smile, nodded like nothing was wrong, and slipped away from the crowd. I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and pulled out my phone. I still had the email. The one I wasn't supposed to see. The one that could ruin her. And in that moment, I knew she might have humiliated me tonight. But I was going to destroy her reputation. And I wouldn't even have to raise my voice. Growing up, Lindsay was always the golden child. She got straight A's, joined every club, got into an Ivy League school, and married a guy who looked like he was born in a Ralph Lauren ad. Mom showed off her achievements like trophies on a shelf. Dad used to say, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" I was the artsy one, the emotional one. I journaled too much. I changed majors twice. Took time off school after my boyfriend cheated on me with my best friend. And yeah, I moved back home after a rough year. But I wasn't a failure, I was just lost. But Lindsay never let me forget it. Every holiday, every family dinner, every casual brunch, she'd find a way to take a jab. Oh, Emily's still discovering herself. Emily's latest phase. Emily and her little projects, always with that smug smile, and everyone just laughed. They'd say I was too sensitive or reading into things. But it wasn't a joke. It was death by 1,000 cuts, and the worst part, I looked up to her once. I really did. I wanted to be close. I thought we could be friends, sisters. But Lindsay made it her mission to keep me beneath her dot. It wasn't just the words. It was the tone. The calculated pauses. The timing, how she made sure people were always watching when she twisted the knife. Let her get away with it for years. But last month, I'd been temping at a legal office downtown. A tiny admin job, just a few weeks, nothing big. One afternoon, I was cleaning out the junk folder in the office inbox when I saw an email chain flagged as inappropriate conduct. I clicked on it. It was a forwarded thread between someone in HR and Lindsay. Apparently, she'd borrowed parts of a client presentation from an intern who later quit. The intern complained to HR, and there was an ongoing investigation. The only reason Lindsay hadn't been suspended was because the boss had insufficient evidence, and it was quietly being swept under the rug. I wasn't even supposed to see it. I wasn't looking for anything, but I screenshotted the entire thing. I wasn't sure why at the time. Just a reflex, but after the engagement party, that email became something else. It became power. Still, I hesitated. I knew what it meant to ruin someone's career. I knew what it meant to expose my own sister, but then I remembered the way she laughed at me in front of her boss. The way she used me to make herself look better. And I thought, she wouldn't hesitate if it were me. That night, I stayed up late, reading over the emails again. I checked LinkedIn, looked up the name of her firm's regional director, some guy named Alan Cho. Then I found the intern. Her name was Veronica. She posted about leaving the firm on Instagram. I messaged her from a burner account. Hey, I know what happened to you at Taylor & Connors. I have proof. Want to talk? She replied in less than 5 minutes. Yes. Everything started falling into place after that. I didn't want revenge for the sake of it. I wanted her to feel what I'd felt. To stand in a room full of people and be the one they whispered about. I wanted her mask to crack, and for once, I wanted to stop being the joke in her story and start writing my own. Veronica and I met at a small coffee shop downtown. She looked nervous, biting her lip, glancing over her shoulder like someone might follow her. When I told her who I was, she blinked. Wait, you're her sister? I nodded. Unfortunately. She laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. You really have dirt on Lindsay? I have screenshots, emails, everything they tried to bury. She leaned in. Do you know what it felt like, being blamed for something I created? Watching her take credit while they pushed me out. I thought no one cared. I care, I said, and for the first time, I really meant it. Veronica agreed to help. She still had drafts of her original project, time-stamped Google Docs, and Slack messages that proved Lindsay had lifted entire sections of her work without credit. We compiled it all into a neat little file, proof that Lindsay hadn't just borrowed work. She'd stolen it. Next step. Find the right moment. I knew Lindsay. Firm was throwing a partner appreciation dinner at a private club that Friday. Very elite. Lots of wine. Lots of egos. Her boss, Alan Cho, would be there. So would HR. And Lindsay would be glowing, no doubt, thinking she was untouchable. But here's the thing about perfect people. They never see the cracks until they fall through them. I wasn't invited, obviously, but Veronica was. She'd been reconnected with someone from the firm and got a +1. Guess who she brought? And I borrowed a tailored black jumpsuit from a friend, tied my hair up, and for once, just once, I felt like I belonged somewhere. The plan was simple. Veronica would casually chat with Alan, mention the previous issue, and then I'd approach as the anonymous source who'd seen the internal emails. We wouldn't accuse, we'd let the evidence speak for itself. But just before we walked in, Veronica grabbed my arm. Are you sure about this? Once we do this? You can't. Take it back. I took a breath. I thought of every time Lindsay rolled her eyes at me, every time she made me feel like less, every cruel little smile. She made me feel small for years, I said. This isn't just about me, it's about the truth. We stepped inside. The room buzzed with low laughter, clinking glasses, the smell of expensive cologne. Lindsay stood near the back, holding a wine glass, talking to a group of men in suits. She hadn't seen me yet. Veronica made her way to Alan. I watched from the corner, pretending to browse the bar menu. She was good, calm, casual. I saw Alan's expression shift mild curiosity, then something sharper. His eyes darted to Lindsay. That's when I walked over. I introduced myself quietly, gave him a folder with all of the files. No drama, no threats, just facts. I think you deserve to know the full story, I said, his eyebrows raised. He took the folder, nodded politely, and said, "Thank you for bringing this forward." That was it. That simple, but the storm was already building. 10 minutes later, Alan called Lindsay over. She looked surprised, then annoyed, then nervous. From across the room, I watched as he opened the folder, his voice low but firm. Her smile faded. Her posture stiffened. Then she looked up and saw me. Her face went pale. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just looked at her the way she'd always looked at me, like I saw everything. She excused herself from the table, practically running toward me. "What the hell are you doing here?" she hissed. "Just enjoying the party," I said sweetly. "You little," she started, but stopped. "Too many people were watching. You embarrassed me in front of your whole company," I whispered. "Now it's your turn." Her eyes were full of rage, but she couldn't explode. Not here, not now. For the first time in my life, I had the upper hand. The energy in the room shifted the second Alan called Lindsay aside. Up until that moment, she'd been in her element, holding court in her champagne-colored gown, charming her boss, surrounded by colleagues who laughed at her every word. But now her shoulders tensed, her laugh stiffened, and her eyes started searching for control. Veronica and I stood near the bar, quietly watching everything unfold. No one noticed us at first, but that changed fast. 10 minutes later, Alan came back out alone. He cleared his throat and raised his voice just enough to slice through the low murmur of the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began. "Thank you all for being here tonight. I want to take a brief moment to address something important." A subtle hush fell over the guests. At Taylor & Connors, we take integrity seriously. And recently, information came to light about one of our team members that goes against everything we stand for. Some people glanced around. Others froze mid-sip. "Effective immediately," he continued, "Lindsay Rhodes will no longer be employed with our firm. We wish her well moving forward." A gasp. Then silence. You could feel the collective shock crash, like a wave across the room. Her name, so confidently spoken in praise just an hour ago, now dismissed in a single sentence. Just like that, the star of the night became a ghost. Lindsay didn't return to the party. She left through the side door, escorted by a grim-faced HR rep. But before she disappeared, she caught my eye. For a moment, she looked less like my perfect older sister, and more like a scared little girl. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply watched, because this wasn't about winning. It was about finally being seen. Veronica let out a long breath beside me. "You actually did it," she whispered. I nodded, my heart pounding. We did. The rest of the night passed in a blur. People whispered, glanced our way, tried to piece things together. I left without saying a word to anyone else. The next day, the real aftershocks hit. Texts from family flooded, and my mom called, frantic. "Emily, what the hell happened last night? Your sister says you sabotaged her." Even my dad texted, "Is this true? Did you get Lindsay fired?" At first, I ignored them. I wasn't ready to explain. Not yet, but later that evening, my mom showed up in person. She looked exhausted. Her usual poise cracked. "I know she's not easy," she said. "But did you really report her?" I didn't lie. I gave her boss the truth. That's it. She sat down slowly. "She's devastated, Emily." I looked her straight in the eye. "So was I for years." Silence. And then she did something I never expected. She said, I think we all let her treat you like you didn't matter." I'm sorry, it wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for once, she wasn't defending Lindsay. She was listening to me. The next few days were weird. Words spread fast. Someone from the firm leaked what happened to a legal industry blog. Lindsay's name was splashed across headlines, like partner to be let go amid plagiarism scandal. Her fiancé He dumped her once he learned about the whole mess and a few other things she lied about. Turns out, her entire life was stitched together with image over substance. And now it was unraveling. She deleted most of her Instagram posts, changed her LinkedIn, went silent. I should have felt triumphant. I thought I would. But what I felt was relief. I didn't need revenge anymore. I had truth. I had peace. I went back to my little room and reopened my podcast project. Not because I wanted to prove I was better than her, but because I genuinely enjoyed doing it. I recorded a new episode called What Happens When You Stop Shrinking? Yourself. It got hundreds of downloads. Then 1,000. A mental health app offered to sponsor me. I wasn't rich. I wasn't a rising corporate star. But I was finally myself. Free. Veronica, and I kept in touch. She got a job at a company that actually respected her. She said helping expose Lindsay gave her closure. Feels like karma. Finally called her back. She said, As for me, I started living like I mattered. I spoke louder, took up space. I even painted again. I haven't seen Lindsay since that night. But sometimes, I wonder if she ever thinks about it. About the night her whole empire crumbled, not because of an enemy, but because of the sister she ignored, mocked, and underestimated. I didn't ruin her. She did that herself. I just stopped protecting her from the consequences. And that's the thing about people like her. They think silence is permission, that being kind means being weak, that the ones who love quietly won't ever fight back. But they're wrong. Sometimes the quiet ones were just waiting for the perfect moment to speak.
You know those stories where people say, if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it? Yeah, this is one of those. Last Thanksgiving, I found out my mother-in-law tried to drug me. Not in some vague, exaggerated way, but literally, slipped something into my wine glass right there at the family table. Like a low-budget movie villain in a cardigan, but here's the kicker, I saw her do it, not because I was watching her closely, I wasn't. I was just reaching for the salt when I noticed her hand hover over my glass with this weird little flick of the wrist. And the smile she gave me right after? It wasn't warm or sweet. It was smug that I didn't say anything. Not right away. I just sat there, heart pounding, thinking, what the hell is going on now? My husband's family has never really liked me. I always chalked it up to culture clash or whatever. But this? This was another level. So I did what any self-respecting woman with a spine and a grudge would do. I calmly swapped my glass with her husband's when no one was looking, and then I waited. The next 30 minutes changed everything. Her husband, my father-in-law, started sweating. Badly. His face turned pale, then beet red. He slurred a little, tried to stand up, and collapsed right onto the turkey platter. People screamed. Someone called 911. My mother-in-law looked like she'd seen a ghost. And I just sat there, staring at her, holding my untouched glass like it was a damn trophy, and that's just where it starts, because what happened next? The hospital. The toxicology report. The secrets that spilled out like gravy from an overstuffed boat. And the revenge? It wasn't just petty. It was surgical. I didn't just get even, I ended her. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning. Before the dinner. Before the glass. Before I realized my husband's family wasn't just toxic, they were dangerous. You ever get that weird gut feeling that someone hates you, but they're just too polite to admit it? That was me with my mother-in-law, Doreen, from the very first day I met her. She made sure I knew I didn't belong. It was in the way she'd compliment my dress and then immediately add, that color's hard to pull off if you've got wide hips. Or how she'd say things like, you know, when Mark was with Emily, he was so calm. Emily. The ex. The family's golden girl. She was like a department store catalog came to life, blonde, soft-spoken, sorority queen vibes. Me? I was raised in a blue-collar home, worked 2 jobs through college, and I don't believe in sugarcoating crap. I guess that made me difficult. Doreen didn't like difficult, but for the sake of my husband, Mark, I played nice. We'd go to family dinners, bring the damn pumpkin pie, smile through the backhanded compliments. It was exhausting. Every gathering felt like walking barefoot on broken glass, painful, but you try to act normal so nobody notices the bleeding. It wasn't just Doreen. The whole vibe was fake. My father-in-law, Jerry, barely talked. Mark's sister, Lisa, was sweet to my face but cold behind my back. And then there was Mark himself, stuck in the middle, pretending everything was fine. He'd say, babe, she's just old-fashioned. Or, you're imagining it, she's not that bad. But deep down, I think even he knew something was off. Then came Thanksgiving. We were hosting this time. That was Doreen's idea, ironically. You've been married 2 years, it's time. You started taking on traditions. I swear, if she could have added a contract and blood signature to that invitation, she would have. So we cooked, cleaned, set the table like it was Martha Stewart's house. I even folded the napkins into those fancy triangle shapes that made me feel like I was doing origami at gunpoint. Doreen arrived in full judgmental glory. Pearls, sweater set, matching lipstick and nail polish like she walked out of a 1980s etiquette manual. Smells ambitious in here, she said when she walked in. I ignored it. Dinner started okay, if a little tense. Mark carved the turkey. Lisa kept nervously refilling everyone's glasses. Doreen criticized the stuffing recipe I'd gotten from her own son. Typical. Then, at one point, I got up to grab salt from the kitchen. As I returned to the table, I noticed Doreen's hand near my wine glass. It was just a second. A flick. Like she was dropping something in, or maybe just pretending to wipe something off, but then came that smile, that smug, tight-lipped, I know something you don't smile. The one she only ever gave me when she thought she'd won something. And suddenly, my stomach dropped. No way. She wouldn't. Would she? My fingers started tingling as I sat down. I kept staring at my wine glass, trying to decide if I was being crazy or if I'd just witnessed something unforgivable. I didn't want to make a scene. Not yet. So instead, I glanced at her. Doreen was cutting into her turkey like nothing had happened. She looked satisfied. Too satisfied. Then something clicked in me. If she had done something to my drink, I needed to know for sure. And I needed proof. But I couldn't exactly test it right there at the table. So I did the only thing that made sense in the moment. While everyone was distracted with their food, I reached over, cool as hell, and switched my glass with Jerry's. Now, you might think that was cruel. But I didn't know for certain what was in that drink. For all I knew, it was nothing. But I had to be sure. And I'll be honest, part of me wanted her to see what it felt like to watch someone she loved go through whatever she had planned for me. It didn't take long. Jerry was always quiet, kind of the background character in his own family. But about 20 minutes after he finished his second glass of wine, something started to change. First, he dropped his fork, then he said, bathroom, but it came out more like, room. His eyes went glassy. Sweat started beading up on his forehead. He tried to push his chair back but misjudged and nearly fell. That's when Doreen panicked. Jerry? Jerry, she said, jumping up and rushing to his side. Mark followed suit, calling his dad's name while trying to help him up. Lisa screamed. I stood there, heart racing, watching it all unfold. Because in that moment, I knew she did it, and she knew I knew. Doreen looked right at me. Her face had drained of color. Her lips trembled. There wasn't just confusion in her eyes, there was guilt. Pure, unfiltered guilt. Someone call an ambulance, she shouted, but her voice cracked in a way I'd never heard before. I didn't say a word. I just calmly picked up my original glass, the one she'd tampered with, and poured it down the drain in the kitchen while everyone else was busy with Jerry. I made sure she saw that, too. The paramedics came. Jerry was semi-conscious but couldn't form sentences. They rushed him to the ER. Doreen rode in the ambulance, clutching his hand, crying like the innocent wife. But her hands were shaking too hard to be just fear. She looked like someone who had just been handed her own death sentence. And me? I followed Mark to the hospital in our car. I didn't say anything on the way. He was too focused on his dad to notice how tightly I was gripping the steering wheel. The hospital was chaos for a while. Nurses, IVs, forms. Finally, a doctor came out and told us that Jerry would be okay, thankfully, but his system had traces of a strong sedative. Something not normally found in wine. Something, added. Mark looked confused. A sedative? What the hell does that mean? But Doreen, she froze. The doctor continued. It could have been a mistake. Someone might have mixed it up with medication. But it's not something people accidentally consume. I watched Doreen like a hawk. And sure enough, her face twisted just slightly, like she was thinking too. Moves ahead in a chess game she thought she'd already won. She turned to the doctor, instantly in performance mode. Oh my God. That's horrible. Could it have come from his heart pills? He's on so many medications, but the doctor shook his head. We checked that. Nothing he's prescribed contains zolpidem. Zolpidem. That's when it hit me. She tried to knock me out. That's what it was, Ambien. I looked it up later. It can cause confusion, blackouts, even memory loss when mixed with alcohol. If I had drank that wine, I could have passed out right there at the table. Or in the car on the way home. Or worse, and I truly believe, that's what she wanted. I don't know if it was to humiliate me, hurt me, frame me, or something darker, but I stopped it. I stopped her, and now? I wasn't just angry. I was Done playing nice, because the mask had slipped, and Doreen had no idea who she'd just messed with. They kept Jerry overnight for observation. Mark and I stayed in the waiting room, half asleep in stiff plastic chairs. Doreen never came out from his room. I imagine she couldn't look anyone in the eye. The next morning, a nurse handed Mark a folder with the toxicology report. He flipped through it quickly, his brow furrowing. "Babe, this says Dad had a high dose of zolpidem in his system. Enough to knock someone out cold." I nodded slowly. Mark looked up at me. "You don't think someone could have slipped it into his drink, do you?" I stared at him, and I didn't blink. "I don't think I know." There was a beat of silence. He waited, maybe hoping I'd say something ridiculous like, "Just kidding." But instead, I leaned in and told him exactly what I saw. Doreen. By the glass. The wrist flick. The smug smile. And the quiet switch I made while she wasn't looking. Mark paled. "Wait, you're saying she tried to drug you?" "Looks like it," I said calmly. "But her precious husband got it instead." He ran his hand through his hair. No way. My mom wouldn't do that." I raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that?" "Think real hard, Mark. She's insulted me every chance she gets. Undermined me. Tried to keep me out of your life. She hated that I was hosting this year. And now she's out here spiking drinks like some suburban Bond villain." He didn't say anything. But I saw the truth breaking through. Cracking his perfect little family illusion like glass under pressure. "I need to talk to her," he finally said. I shrugged. "Be my guest. Just don't drink anything she gives you." Doreen came home later that day, clinging to Jerry like a damn martyr. She cried at the door, talking about how traumatized she was and how something must have gone terribly wrong with the wine. But Mark didn't buy it. He was distant. Cold. Even that night, he sat her down in our kitchen and asked her point blank, "Mom, did you drug my wife's wine?" Her face contorted instantly, but not with shock. No, with offense. "How dare you? After everything I've done for you? You believe her over your own mother?" Mark didn't flinch. "Just answer the question." She fumbled. "Of course not. What kind of monster do you think I am?" And then she turned to me, eyes blazing. "You set me up. You switched the glasses on purpose, didn't you? You wanted to make it look like I..." Her mouth stopped moving mid-sentence, because she realized what she'd just said. Mark caught it, too. His eyes widened. "Wait, you knew the glasses were switched?" Silence. You could hear the refrigerator humming. "That's how quiet it got." That's not what Doreen stammered. But it was too late. The truth was out. Mark stood up, completely silent. And for the first time since I'd met him, he looked at his mother like she was a stranger. "I think you should go," he said. Doreen's jaw dropped. "Go? You want me to leave?" "But Jerry, he needs me." "We'll bring him what he needs," Mark replied flatly. "But you're not welcome in this house anymore." The next few days were tense. Mark didn't say much, just kept to himself. Lisa called once to say she didn't want to get involved, which basically meant she knew what happened but was too cowardly to admit it. Jerry recovered quickly, thank God. The doctors cleared him, but they told him straight up, he was poisoned. And it wasn't accidental. When he asked Doreen what happened, she gave some sob story about confusion and vitamins. But Jerry wasn't dumb. He started staying with Mark's cousin just to rest, which I translated as, "I can't sleep next to that woman right now." Doreen began damage control. She texted me long, dramatic apologies full of lies and crocodile tears. She begged to meet. Claimed she just wanted to scare me, not hurt me. She said she lost control. That she felt replaced. That I'd taken her son. I didn't respond. Not once. But she wasn't done yet. One night, we got an anonymous call from Child Protective Services. Yep. CPS. Someone had called in a false report saying I was unstable and possibly drug abusing. In front of our 4-year-old son. You want to guess who that someone was? They couldn't prove it, but we all knew. No one else had the motive. No one else had the nerve. She wanted to scare me. To punish me. To take something from me, but all she did was light a fuse, because I wasn't just going to protect my family. I was going to destroy hers. Asterisk. You don't come for my family and walk away clean. After the CPS stunt, I knew Doreen wouldn't stop. She was the kind of woman who couldn't stand losing, even if the game was her own son's marriage. And honestly, I was done playing defense. So I made a plan. First step, documentation. I gathered everything. I wrote down the events in detail. I printed the toxicology report from the hospital, Jerry's statement, even screenshots of Doreen's rambling apology texts. I created a timeline. Every time she tried to reach out, email, call, message, I saved it. Second step, allies. I reached out to Jerry. Quietly. I asked him one question: do you believe she did it? He was silent for a long time, then he said, yes. And it scares the hell out of me. He agreed to give a written statement about what happened that night, what he remembered before blacking out, what she said afterward, and what he suspected. He also shared that Doreen had pulled similar manipulative stunts in the past, controlling his meds, hiding car keys for his safety, even pretending he was forgetful when he wasn't. She wasn't just toxic. She was dangerous. Third step. Reputation. Doreen was vice president of the local women's charity league. She loved throwing her title around like it made her royalty. But those types? They care more about image than anything. So I drafted an anonymous email, with attachments. I sent it to the charity board, explaining that a senior member had allegedly attempted to drug her daughter-in-law at Thanksgiving, resulting in her husband being hospitalized instead. I didn't lie. I didn't accuse. I just laid out the timeline, the evidence, and let the facts speak for themselves, and oh, did they listen. 2 days later, Doreen was respectfully asked to resign. She tried to spin it as her taking a step back for family, but the damage was done. Whispers spread. Invitations stopped coming. The phone stopped ringing, but I wasn't done. Final step, public truth. I told our friends. My side of the family. The parents at our kids' preschool. Not in a gossipy way, but calmly, factually, and without exaggeration. I didn't smear her name. I simply told the truth. People believed me. Why? Because I didn't need drama to make her look bad. Her actions did that for me. Even Lisa, Mark's sister, called me one night, crying. She admitted she always suspected their mom had issues, but never thought she'd go that far. She needs help, she whispered. She needs consequences, I replied. And what about Mark? He stood by me. Watching the truth unravel destroyed something in him, this lifelong belief that his mom was just difficult, not malicious. But seeing it all laid out, what she almost did to me, what actually happened to his dad, made him realize that protecting her meant endangering everyone else. We cut her off. Entirely. No contact. No visits. No second chances. Thanksgiving the next year? We hosted again, this time with real family. Real laughter. Real peace. No poison in the wine, only closure.